Well, hello. Hello, everybody, and good day on my behalf as well. I'm Teemu Myllykangas. Today, we're going to talk about WithSecure MDR. And first, we're going to start off a little bit with the background information on what are the threats are kind of looking now today. Here we have the maze where you can see all the ransomware 10 years ago. And the world looked very different at the time. But today, the threats that we face are quite a bit different, and you can see some of them on the screen. And these are the kind of things that are really hard to detect. These are really hard to respond into, and they are very different than the attacks back in the day when you would just drop a malware somewhere, call it a day, and then the customer was infected or the target was infected. Take, for example, the methods of living off the land, which essentially means that they are using the tools that are in your systems, that are legitimate tools that you use on a daily basis to do your compromise. And those kinds of things are really hard to detect. You cannot block them because you need them on a daily basis, so rather you need something else to do with them. Essentially, you need to detect the misuse of those and respond to them quickly. Now, that makes quite a bit of sense from multiple perspectives. So depending on whose business literature you believe in, or security literature, the cost of a cybersecurity incident is roughly 70 to 90% lower if you can remediate and contain the incident within the first 72 hours. And that obviously makes quite a bit of sense, because if you are infected on one device and you manage to contain it there, then essentially you wipe that device, you lose a little bit of work time on that employee, and that's it, right? But then on the other hand, if you let the attack spread to your whole system and your whole company is down and your business continuity is compromised, that's when it becomes really expensive. So this makes a lot of sense. Now, despite the fact that this makes a lot of sense, we do see from our own internal data, for example, that on average it takes roughly 10 days to close an EDR detection. That is quite a bit of time. Now, obviously, there are quite a bit of reasons why this happens, and you can see some of the reasons on the screen. For example, there is nobody to monitor things 24/7. I, for one, don't want to work during the night or weekends, so you might need somebody else to do that, or perhaps you don't need anybody to do that. They might not have the skills, the experience, or the capability to actually do anything about the incidents either. So irregardless which of those is your problem, you are essentially screwed if you have an incident. And usually this is what the customers say to me when they've had an incident, and it starts with sentences like, "We didn't even realize something was ... and usually it's wrong, missing, not patched, and things like that. And that is specifically because of the reason that they do lack the capabilities to actually do the things that you can see on the screen. And it is no wonder then that, for example, in the NIS2 directive, they are giving quite specific guidance on what kind of things you actually need to do in order to make sure that you are safe in what you do and that the company that is providing or that you work for is safe. So for example, the article 21.2.b says that you need to establish capabilities to detect and handle cybersecurity incidents. Makes a lot of sense. That's what MDR is for. Same thing, you need to establish capabilities to ensure business continuity during cybersecurity incidents. Again, makes a lot of sense. If you have an incident and you are responding to it, but that response brings your whole business down, then what's the point of doing response, because the business is down anyway, right? So you need to be skilled enough in order to respond to these incidents in a manner that is fast, it is effective, and it is decisive, but it has to be appropriately scoped, and that needs quite a bit of experience to do. Now, for this, which is what James touched right now, is what we're releasing the WithSecure Managed Detection and Response for. So essentially, what the WithSecure MDR is, it's a fully managed 24/7 service in which the experts that we have are constantly monitoring your environment for those threats that I just mentioned, and they are the really, really good guides specializing specifically into finding these kinds of threats and attacks and responding to them in a fast and effective and decisive manner. If you look at some of our data that we see on our backend, that if you look at our XDR platform in general, that already blocks 99.9 something% of all the threats out there, which makes a lot of sense. You don't want to roll out a carpet to an attacker and come in. If they, do the malware stuff still, let's block it, let's prevent it. That's still out there in the world. It's not like it's going to go away, but let's not make it easy for them. So let's block majority of that stuff and call it a day. Now, from our backend data, we can also see that how long does it take for people to close the EDR tickets in our system. So for the slowest 10%, it takes over 80 days. Then you have the middle one, which is roughly 80% of them, that is within 2 to 8 days, or 80 days. And then you have the fastest 10%, which is still only 2 days. And 2 days is quite a long period of time to give free rein for an attacker in your system once they have compromised you on the first time. Now, on the bottom on the screen, this blue circle there, which I've actually drawn myself, I'm quite proud of that, you can see the averages of our own WithSecure SOC, or as we call it, DRT, and what are their response times into different kinds of incidents. Obviously, detection of the incident or a attack is quite fast. It happens nearly instantaneously. The investigation obviously takes the longest amount of time because you need to figure out what's going on, what is appropriate measures to take, and so forth. But then the response itself is relatively fast because once you have investigated things properly, you actually know what you do, and then it's only a matter of doing it through automated tools and the capabilities that we have in the Elements platform. And finally, the part that takes the second longest time is the remediation, which is essentially ensuring that the attacker has actually been eradicated from the system, and that requires a little bit of research as well. Now, the reason why we can respond to this incident so fast is because it's not only one guy somewhere doing something and then making decisions by themselves. No. The WithSecure SOC, or the DRT team, is supported by a large number of security specialists from all over the field. And a lot of those guys you can meet on the demo booths here as well, and you can talk to them more about their specific area. For example, threat analysts or threat intel analysts or AI research and so forth, or the incident response guys when I'm there with the booth as well. So they are supported with a lot of experts on their field, and that is one of the key reasons why we are able to respond to these detections so fast as we do. Obviously, humans do not scale infinitely. You cannot copy-paste humans, but you can copy-paste software, or you can deploy another cloud instance and call it a day. So in order for the capabilities of our experts to scale, we also need to have the machine part of the equation really well done. And what you see on the left side is essentially the data and the sensors that collect all the data. And all that data is being then used and stored in our data lake, where we crunch it through, we look for indicators, and we do a lot of really cool things to it that our data scientists are able to tell you more about in the demo stage. They are really smart guys, smarter than I am, so you will need to ask them for the technical details on that. But from there on, you can actually then see all the things that we're doing. So there are quite a bit of events, more than 10 billion that we process every day. So that is quite a bit of stuff that we have to do in order to make sure that everything is correlated together, the trends are analyzed and whatnot. But from all of those billions of events, that's where the detections then come from. And from there on, also the major incident response capabilities and the investigations that we do there. Now, like James said, the MDR is really fit into the mid-market offering that we as WithSecure are targeting. So you do have the co-monitoring, which is suitable for the little bit smaller customers. Then you have the countercept, which is for those customers that have a high risk profile, that are at threat of nation-state attackers and the likes. And then you have MDR, which is essentially our mid-offer in between those. So it is for those customers, for example, who are under NIST 2 and need to deliver to those compliance requirements that I mentioned earlier. They are also the guys that are big enough and they have enough money that they actually need to protect themselves with a service like this. Now, to discuss the differences a little bit between them, and I'm painfully aware of the time that we're running out, but this is just my trick to make sure that you guys will come to the demo booth with me. So I will leave this here for a little bit and take a sip of water. You can take the pictures of it. And if you want to have or ask me questions about it, you can do so after this presentation at the demo booth. Good stuff. And as my final thing, because some people approached me today, they were a little bit like, I'm not particularly aware what is this MDR service. So let's use the final minutes that we have to recap what is this service all about. So essentially how it works is that you have the monitoring component in which we look at your environment 24/7. Then the guys who are monitoring it, whenever they see something suspicious or something that requires attention, they will investigate it, make sure that it's a valid threat, and if it's not, we close it. If it's a valid threat, we escalate it to you. So obviously you want to be aware if something is happening in your system. And that's where we alert you, we tell you here's things going on so that you can actually help us in doing the response in your environment going forward. And finally, in case the incident is severe enough that you need additional backup, or you need somebody very specific in a field of, let's say, OT technology, that's when we have the retainer available, so incident response retainer and the resources behind those available at your use if need be. But on those, I will tell you more tomorrow, so make sure you come and listen to that one as well. And with this, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Teemu.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the insights.
Welcome.
First question from my side. Is this service now live, or when it's going?
Very good question. It is indeed live, so we have entered early access today, essentially meaning that we have a production-ready Windows service available for this. And then we're releasing the Linux and Mac versions of this at June, Linux, and then the Mac version H2 before we go into GA at October 30.
Okay, great, great. Any questions for Teemu or for James? Not for now. Please meet them and their colleagues on the WithSecure Security Services booth in the booth area.